pregnancy test, you'll be excited and can't wait to meet your baby. But remember, a lot of things goes on in your body whilst your baby is growing. Pregnancy is divided into 3 trimesters. We have the first trimester, the second trimester, and the third trimester. And in each trimester, there's a lot of changes that goes on. The baby is developing, and it is so amazing how the baby will grow for you to get that big baby bump before you give birth. In today's video, we're going to talk about the first trimester in pregnancy. I'm going to talk about all the changes that goes on in your body and also the changes that goes on whilst the baby is developing. Hello, welcome to my channel. My name is Bevelyn Ofori, and today's video we are going to talk about everything first trimester during pregnancy. Pregnancy usually lasts around 40 weeks, and the first trimester of pregnancy is from the first week to the 12th week into the pregnancy. Week 1 starts from the first day of your last menstrual cycle. Your body is actually preparing for possible pregnancy. Your ovaries is preparing to release mature ovum. The lining of your uterus is also getting thicker for possible implantation. So during this week, your body is actually preparing. You are not really pregnant. So if you have a 28 days menstrual cycle, the week 1 starts from the first day of your menstrual cycle to the 13th day of the cycle. Week 2. During week 2, if you have a 28-day cycle, then you will ovulate on the 14th day. But if you have 35-day cycle, then you ovulate on the 21st day. During week 2, this is when you have your ovulation or you ovulate. That is when the ovaries release a mature ovum within 24 hours after ovulation, and there is a male gamete inside the fallopian tube which meets with the ovum. Then fertilization will take place. We are now in week 3. Week 3 in pregnancy is when you are actually pregnant. During this week, this is when the fertilized egg travels and implants itself into the lining of the uterus, and this is called implantation. After this process, now we can actually say that you are pregnant. Congratulations, now you are pregnant. In week 4, your baby is not called a baby yet. Your baby is now called embryo, and the embryo is developing and growing inside the lining of the uterus, and the developing cells that will form the baby will be divided into 2. We will now have an outer cells and inner cells. The outer cells will develop to form a link with the maternal blood supply to the uterus, and this is where the baby will get its nutrients. These outer cells will later develop fully to become the placenta and the other membranes of the baby. Now, the inner cells will also first develop into 2 layers, then later into 3 layers. Each layer formed from the inner cells will develop into a different part of your baby's body. Now, we will get 3 layers from the inner cells, which consists of the inner layer, the middle layer, and the outer layer. The inner layer will develop to become the breathing and digestive system, which includes the lungs, the stomach, gut, and the bladder. The middle layer will become the heart, blood vessels, muscles, and bones of the baby. And the outer layer will become the brain and the nervous system, the eyes, the skin, tooth enamels, and the nails of the baby. During the 4th week of pregnancy, your baby is attached to a yolk sac, and this provides your baby with nourishment and nutrients before the placenta is fully formed. The baby during this week is surrounded by fluid inside the amniotic sac. During week 5, your baby's nervous system, which includes the brain, spinal cord, nerves, is already developing, and the foundation for these major organs are also in place. The length of the embryo during this stage is also 2 millimeters long, so it means that the baby is very tiny. The heart is also forming as a simple tube-like structure. The baby also have its own blood vessels, and blood have started to circulate through them. A string of these blood vessels connecting you to the baby will later develop to become the umbilical cord. The neural tube will become your baby's brain and spinal cord. The neural tube have 2 ends. With the 2 ends, we have the head and the tail. A defect at the tail or the end of the neural tube is what causes spinal bifida. When there is also a defect at the head or the upper part of the neural tube, this one too can cause anencephaly. That is why it's very important to take folic acid during pregnancy to prevent these kind of birth defects. We are now in week 6. Our baby is developing and growing well. During this week, there is a large bulge at where your baby heart is developing, and also a bump at the head end of the neural tube. The bump at the head end of the neural tube will later develop to become the baby's brain and head. During this stage, the embryo is curved and it has a tail and it looks more like a small tadpole. The developing arms and legs becomes visible as a small swellings called limp buds. During this stage, on each side of your baby's head, there will be a small dimple, and these dimples will later develop to become your baby's ears. And there will be a small thickness in front of the baby's head, and this will be where the eyes will be formed. At this stage, your baby will be covered with a thin layer, and this thin layer is your baby's skin, and this skin is very light that you can see through the skin. Our baby is growing. We are now in week 7. So at week 7, your baby have now grown, and your baby is growing taller, and he now measures about 10 millimeters from the head to the bottom. This measurement of the baby is called the crown ramp length. The brain of the baby during week 7 is also growing rapidly. As a result of that, at this stage, when you get an ultrasound scan, you will see that the head of the baby is bigger than all the other parts of the baby. Your baby now have a large forehead, and the eyes and the ears too continues to develop. During this stage, your baby ears is developing, but the inner layer of the baby's ear will be the first one to start developing, and the outer layer, that is this part, will develop later. The limb buds of the baby will start to form a cartilage, and this cartilage will develop to become the bones of the baby's legs and arms. The arm buds get longer and the ends flatten out, and these will become the hands. The nerve cells of your baby also continue to develop and multiply as the brain and the spinal cord of your baby start to take shape. By week 8 of pregnancy, your baby is no more called an embryo, but rather called a fetus. Your baby legs are longer, but different parts of the legs are not properly differentiated yet. The knees, ankles, thighs, and toes of your baby legs will take a bit longer before it's developed properly. The fetus during this stage is still inside the amniotic sac, and the placenta continues to develop. So due to that, during this week, your baby still get its nourishment and nutrients from the yolk sac because the placenta is still developing and yet not fully developed. By the 9th week, your baby's face is slowly forming. How exciting is that? The eyes are bigger and more obvious, and the eyes now have pigment or color in them. Your baby now have a mouth and a tongue, and the tongue too have tiny bit of taste buds in them. The hands and feet are also developing, and there is ridges where the fingers and the toes will be formed, although they are not yet separated. The major internal organs of your baby, such as the lungs, the heart, the kidneys, brain, and gut also continues to develop. At this week, your baby now measures about 22 millimeters long from the head to the bottom. We are now in week 10, and week 10, the outer part of the baby ears is now developing, whilst the inner layer of the baby ears, that's the canal which is inside the head, also continues to develop. During this stage, if you were able to see the face of your baby, you will see that your baby now have an upper lip and 2 tiny nostrils in the nose, and the jaw bones of your baby too are developing, and it already contains the future milk teeth of your baby. By week 10 of pregnancy, the heart of your baby is now fully formed, and your baby heartbeat is about 180 times a minute, which is 2 to 3 times faster than your heartbeat. So during the 10th week of pregnancy, this is when you can now actually hear the heartbeat of your baby during an ultrasound scan. At this period of pregnancy, you go to your antenatal clinic and you'll be asked to go and get an ultrasound scan. During this period, you'll be able to hear the tiny heartbeats of your baby through the ultrasound scan machine, and you will be able to also see some jerky movements from your baby. So we are now in week 11. During this period, after you've had that ultrasound scan and you are so excited and you can't believe that you are pregnant, your baby still continues to grow. Yes, your baby during this stage is even growing more quickly. The placenta too continues to develop rapidly, and the placenta will be fully developed by the 12 weeks of pregnancy. The bones of your baby's face are now formed. The baby's eye is also forming, and the eyelids of the baby is still closed or shut, and it will be open in a few months later. The ear bags on each side of your baby's head also continues to grow, and now it looks more like ears. Your baby's head is also growing, and it makes about 1/3 of your baby's length, and the other parts of your baby's body also continues to grow. During the 11th week, your baby is now straightening up to become more straight than curved, and the finger and toes of your baby is also separating, and your baby fingers now have nails on them. We are now at the last week of the first trimester, that is the 12th week, and during this week your baby have made a lot of progress. Your baby is developing rapidly, and all the parts of your baby is also forming. So by the 12th week of pregnancy, your baby is fully formed, and all the organs, muscles, limbs, and bones are in place. Your baby reproductive organs are also in place by the 12th week. From now onwards, the only thing your baby is going to do is to grow and mature well. Your baby during this stage is also moving a lot, but just that it is too early for you to feel the movement of your baby. And during this week, your placenta has now fully developed and have taken over from the yolk sac to provide your baby with nourishment, nutrients, oxygen, and also take out any toxins from your baby into your bloodstream to be excreted out. These all the changes that goes on during the first trimester of pregnancy. I hope you love this video. See you in my next video.